Well, it's great to speak with you again today, Julio. Looking forward today to hearing your views on the topic of total cost of ownership. My first question is, what is total cost of ownership?
Hi, Duffy. Thanks for having me here again. Question number one, what's the total cost of ownership? Total cost of ownership, TCO, is not a new concept. It's basically mapping, identifying, calculating, and taking in consideration all costs involved in a project, in an acquisition of something. Yeah? So it can be a material, a service, a production line, whatever you buy is not purely taking in consideration the acquisition cost. Has sometimes some companies do when procurement, for example, go to the market to run an RFP for a new product, but instead of that, it's actually taking acquisition cost and adding all various different costs, for example, inventory carrying cost, obsolescence, transportation costs in terms of if you are transporting by air often because your supplier is far away from your production site, that should be taken in consideration as well. The cost that you lose, or the opportunity cost when you don't sell your product, and that goes on and on. So there are different levels of sophistication.
Can you provide an example of TCO?
Well, I like to think simple. One of the best and very simple examples I have is buying a car. Yeah, so buying a car, when you buy a car, you can buy purely based on the cost that you find in the dealer, which is the acquisition cost, which is one way of buying a car. But the TCO applied to that scenario would be to buy the car based on the life cycle of that car. So be the car, the cost of the insurance, the maintenance, the fuel consumption, and all the different elements that all the different cost elements that you carry over the life of your car. That can be, very easily, extrapolated to a production line, and then to a material that your company buys, or to a packaging, or to a service your company buys. But the car example is one of the easiest ones to make it happen. I think sometime in life, each of us have bought a car, or you buy a car, or have seen anyone buying a car. Yeah, so that's why I always use this example.
And why is TCO so important?
Well, I think it comes back a little bit back to question one. It's total cost of ownership, so you get full visibility of the hidden costs. So think about an image of an iceberg. When you buy only based on the acquisition cost, you only see the top of the iceberg outside the sea. Yeah, but underneath, you see there are many different costs, very important costs, sometimes even bigger than the top of the iceberg, that are hidden and not necessarily considered on a structured basis and an often basis as a decision-making tool. And again, those costs can be costs of obsolescence, insurance, extra freight when you send your goods via air rather than the traditional ocean or road, cost of losing the sale, pillaged, and so forth. Yeah, so it can go well beyond in terms of sophistication.
And how does TCO uncover hidden cost?
Quite simple. It's you need to identify, look at what you buy, identify what are the flow and the network of source where you buy, how often you buy, what your MUQ, the minimum order quantity, MBQ, minimal batch quantities, what are the lead times, what are the logistics, the inbound and outbound logistics from your supplier to your site. And then once you identify that, then you create the visibility through a clear picture, a map, and then you start to calculate on the various different elements of the costs. And it doesn't need to be precisely right, but it can be precisely wrong, necessarily wrong. So the idea is to have a good idea, a good estimate of all those different elements. So by then refining, work with the various teams in the supplier and internally. For example, finance is a typical team that works together with procurement and supply chain whilst developing a TCO approach.
What else can TCO tell you?
Well, once you've done that, once you identify your network and your flow, I think as a consequence, total cost of ownership will clearly show you which are the inefficiencies that you have in your supply chain or in your chain from your supplier to your own site or to your third party. That can go, all around high inventory levels, bad service levels, long lead times, obsolescence, wrong placement of the supplier, wrong type of supplier, and so forth.
How do you implement TCO in practice?
Well, I've been doing this for quite a while, and as most of things in life, there is not always a one-size-fits-all approach. My recommendation based on real experience is, just start small, work in a multifunctional team, get people on board, be flexible in terms of how you model your TCO, so build a V0 version 0 spreadsheet, then be flexible to evolve and to take in perspective and in consideration different ways of mapping or calculating your total cost. Typically the key areas here are definitely procurement and planning, but also finance and sometimes logistics. Focus on, then once you have your model, you have your team, you have the buying, and then you need to start small. Then I like to start through three main different streams. One is to fix existing problems. So put together a list of top offenders, and then that can be done very quantitatively. So which are the ones you're carrying high inventories, you're losing sales in terms of through bad service, higher costs, and so forth. So that's the top offenders, and that has a more fixing approach. Then the second element I like to look at is new negotiations, new RFPs. Wherever you run a new RFP, then it's quite worthwhile to bring TCO as the new decision variable to decide out of the RFP who are going to be your suppliers. So that it's more preventable, so it's avoiding to create new problems in your chain. And then similarly to that, it's new product, number 3 is new product launch. Whenever you launch new products, new innovation products, also use TCO as the decision-making variable to decide where you buy the elements, the components of your product in a total perspective, total cost ownership way.
Can you talk about how to start running a TCO program?
Well, I think here you need to first create this case, the business case for the change, and then quite usually it comes from identifying, a very bad scenario of poor service and inventory, and that can be hopefully not on an end-to-end view of the business, so throughout your business, but it can be quite easily in a product category or a specific factory or a specific portfolio of products. manufacture internally or even externally. So I like always to look at the approach from a top-down perspective, being recommended or mandated by the senior leaders, but also building the program from bottom up, having people, the key stakeholders I've mentioned a few times, planning, procurement, finance, logistics, well engaged in the program, well aware what is in for each one of them, and what are their contributions. So I think the combination of top-down and bottom-up works fine, works quite well. And then, again, implementing not throughout the business, but I really try to be selective in terms of where to implement, where are the most considerable low-hanging fruits, which will deliver, a robust pilot. And this robust pilot then can build the credibility to be deployed, across the business wherever it makes sense, and then demonstrate success and deploy it further.
How do you overcome resistance?
I think that's a good point. Usually, you get some pushback from, as always, you go to a change process. In any case, I think in terms of TCO, resistance can come from few angles. So one is procurement, who quite wrongly sometimes are measured performance through a simple and single view of acquisition cost. So it's the typical how I can get the lowest possible acquisition cost. But then once that implemented, then you get extra costs, hidden costs that the TCO you identified. So really to overcome that resistance is you need to work with procurement quite closely and to show the business, and that's not only procurement, to show the whole business what the size of the prize, so what's the opportunity size if we move from TCO, from an acquisition cost to a TCO perspective for decision making. Yeah. The other thing is in planning, supply chain planning. Then the typical resistance here is they don't have the time to provide the right variables, or they are not very interested in thinking medium and long term. They focus on the short-term view of things, and that you need to show them how to to overcome resistance, how to what's in for them in terms of overcoming, avoiding future crises, getting a much better visibility and control of the supply chain, having their partners, their suppliers placed at the right location, serving them with the right lead times and the right minimum, maximum, and variable bets. Then also, I think third point is work with finance, has an independent entity to calculate with credibility what's the real total cost of ownership, making the bridge between supply chain planning and procurement, and then base the decisions on facts, hard facts, and how quantitative and qualitative variables. Then it makes for the typical individuals involved in this environment, supply chain and procurement. When you talk numbers, when you talk facts, decisions are quite easily taken. The right decision is quite easy to take. And then once all of that is done, then clearly you need to ensure that the implementation is right, and then need to put a clear governance in terms of bringing that to life with clear targets for each of the parties involved, and those targets need to be cross-functionally aligned and also linked back to remuneration, career progression, and etc. So That's I think is a good way to overcome resistance, and building a strong team, with transparency and not us and them, but we all together as representing the business. So thanks for that. It has been a pleasure, Dustin, for having me here again. I hope that helps you and your public. And by all means, reach me out if you need any help in terms of how to run a TCO program in the future. My contact details you'll find there, but it's anyway julio.franca@spinconsulting.net. A little bit about myself. I am an engineer, has a background. I work over 20 years in supply chain. I run a company called a consulting niche boutique company called Spin Consulting. We are very much focused on the short-term assignments, result measurable projects, working in supply chain, procurement, logistics, and end-to-end business projects. We can do, of course, strategy development, but we're very hands-on, operationally oriented. So we work very close with our clients that you can find some of them in our website, www.spinconsulting.net. But we work very close with them, to get things done, things implemented, and get results in their P&L and balance sheet. So that's a bit about us. Thanks again for having me here.
Thank you again, Julio, for sharing today, and I look forward to interviewing you again in the near future.